welcome to the Blackbar podcast. Whether you're listening or watching or otherwise present somehow in some third form that I don't really understand, welcome. I hope that you are ready for today's conversation. We're running a little bit late today, but that's okay. I appreciate you joining us nonetheless. On today's episode, we're going to discuss 15 totally free creative tools that we always use. And then Caleb's going to get a little bit into starting on 3D for free. A little bit of a rhyming scheme there. Today's a free episode, guys. I don't know about you, but I love free stuff. I've always enjoyed the phrase, if it's free, it's for me. So, gentlemen, how are we doing today? And what is the most recent free thing that you have gotten to enjoy?
Gosh.
What on earth is that?
Yeah.
I don't know. Have you been giving any, like, I don't know.
I don't know if it's necessary for free, but tomorrow Tori and I celebrate our 5th anniversary. So there's that.
Well, years of investment, but I mean, I guess technically it's happening for free.
It's happening whether, the time just keeps moving forward. So it's going to happen.
Well, for example, as a tangible example, of course, I started Crossing Crown recently, and they have a whole kitchen stocked with food, and they have kombucha on tap.
Oh, very nice.
And
Okay.
that's
Good
very
night.
hipster of them, but
Yes.
it is giving me new life. So that's been my free celebration of kombucha
Nice.
whenever I want it, Caleb, do you
That's
engage
great.
in free things? I know this is like the vaguest, no prep intro, but
The biggest free thing I've been using a bunch recently is Blender, but I'm not going to spend time talking about it right now because we're going to talk about it a lot
little
later.
wink reference to what's happening today. But guys, thank you so much for joining us and for just enduring this conversation today. Not enduring. This is a free offering to you. This is your free thing for today. So hopefully that'll take your answer to that question. Outside of our conversation today, of course, if you ever need help from us, you can connect with us at blk.bar, which is not always free, but we're happy to converse with you where we can. And then, of course, the Discord is also free. So, guys, since we're running a little behind today, we're going to get right into today's conversation. And we put right up in front the topic title, 15 free creative tools we always use. We're going to basically run through a bunch of creative free tools on the front end to just provide, and some of the stuff that we have just found a lot of value in. And of course, we know as Christian and church creatives, you don't always have a big budget to rely on. So sometimes free items need to be used, and that's not always a bad thing. Now, one thing that we'll not include in our list is social media. Technically, there are a lot of social medias out there that are free.
Yes.
Like, I mean, you don't have to necessarily pay for Instagram or Facebook or TikTok or whatever.
Do you have to pay for X, though? I remember that being a
If
thing.
you want the blue thing next
Yeah,
to you,
yeah, that's
you
right.
can use it for free.
And also, if you don't repost the thing about Mark Zuckerberg, you don't have my permission to make me pay for Facebook, then you might have to pay for Facebook.
There you
There
go.
you go.
Watch out for that.
Yeah.
But aside from social media, here's a couple things that we're going to be just throwing out your way, and actual, hopeful, tangible uses that we have done with them ourselves. So we're just going to kind of pass it between us. It's just kind of a group share today. So Caleb's going to kick us off, and then we'll rotate between the three of us until we kind of cover this gamut of items. So take notes, pull out your notepad, pull out your note app. There's some cool free tools that we can use. So Caleb, whenever you're ready, buddy.
If you have any tools that you use that we don't talk about today, please throw them in the comments so that other people can take advantage of these. And these are tools that, for the most part, we actually, like, as professionals, use constantly, like regularly. I know just about all the tools I'm talking about, I'm using every week, if not every day. So excited to talk about this.
For sure.
The first one that I wanted to talk about today is a website called Unsplash. And Unsplash is specifically for graphic designers or web designers or whatever, where you need stock photos that don't suck and are free to use however you want. This is my go-to site for anything stock photography. Everything up here has been, well, not everything. There are some photos they recently created Unsplash Plus,
Yes.
which is their premium version. So there are some photos that you pay for, but most of the content up on the site has been uploaded free of charge to use literally anywhere you want. They ask that you sort of like attribute the person, but it is not explicitly necessary that you do so. And the stuff here is good. I use this stuff regularly.
I've always been perplexed how this system works because, you know, we're not exactly known for a just giving things away society, but like there is some good stuff on this website. Like if I'm going to a place, this is the first place I'm going, regardless of whether I have access to a paid resource.
I've used Unsplash a few times for multiple different things I worked with, especially at GR First.
Yeah, if you're working, especially with a client that may not have a bunch of photos, or if you're doing an event for the first time that there is like no photos of it, the amount of times that I've used this picture so many times, just use it at different clients. Who cares, right? But for like a prayer event or something like that, you want to do like worship stuff. There's plenty of generic photos of something like this. This could be almost any charismatic church for the most part. And people are pretty smart about it. So also, if you're a photographer and you have stuff that's generic enough, give and take. You upload to the thing. Thanks for everything you do. Thanks for everybody that uploads stuff to this website. I use it, right? Even if it's just you don't have photos yet and you need placeholders to drop in for stuff that eventually you will replace, it doesn't have to look like just junk generic stuff. It's legitimately really cool.
Caleb, can you give us like the 1-minute version of, for someone who's never heard of Unsplash, why wouldn't they just use Google Images? Why wouldn't they just take images off of Google? Why would they want to use Unsplash instead?
Because for the most part, if you search on Google Images and you sort by large or whatever, and you just find stuff on there, for the most part, Google Images is not showing you stuff that is copyright free. There are ways to get it to show that. There in the, like when you're filtering down, there's like content usage, I believe, is the drop down, and you can pick Creative Commons, which would be the one where you could use sort of however you want. But for the most part, those are images that are owned by people, and it's the internet. People steal stuff all the time. But we're Christ followers, and we're not supposed to steal. We're supposed to do it the right way. So I'd recommend. I mean, this is totally legal, free, like ethical way to access effectively the same kind of content. Don't be dumb and just steal stuff. Chances are nothing's going to happen, but it's the wrong way to go about things. Right? Be smart. Be a good person. Use Unsplash. TM. Cool. They can have that for now.
Well, Caleb, do you feel like you got number one situated?
Yeah, for sure.
So number two, and I feel like in my mind, there's a podcast brewing coming on the horizon. It's coming. Creatives are not necessarily known for their organization. And I think that sometimes is what is holding creatives back from doing their best work, because they don't spend the time. I'm not adding you. This is on you. You didn't have to say anything. Creatives are often not able to prioritize the little bit of time investment to organize well, because they think it's going to take up too much time. But I, especially with my transition to Cross and Crown, I have been learning a lot about the value of project management. And one of my favorite tools that I used at Lifehouse that I started there, it's called Monday.com. There are other similar softwares like this. There's Asana, there's ClickUp. Monday is the one that I default to. And a reality of a lot of these programs, even you heard with Unsplash, is there are paid versions which will give you access to more content. But for Monday, I found that the free version is more than sufficient. Caleb, if you want to pull up that image of how I've used it, at Lifehouse, this is an example of my Lifehouse Monday workload. I was able to divvy out projects by date. I was able to determine what the project type was. Like, this is fully customizable. And what I enjoy about this is it's just visual cohesion, visual organization. Even colors are leveraged what is most important in my mind. So I have found, like, usually most days I will start my first 20 to 30 minutes sitting down on Monday.com and arranging what my most important priority tasks are for the day. And you would be surprised how much spending just that on a software like this can help you advance for your most optimal use for the day. So, like I said, Monday there are paid versions, but the free version allows you to at least have one page where you can put pretty much everything that you saw in that image that I shared. Paid versions, you can of course have larger teams, and you can automate in AI tools that help refresh things. And if you want to look further into that, that's fine. But at the very least, if you don't have anything, I'd recommend starting with a free Monday account and just see what kind of organization you can do to get yourself and your teams best on track. So Monday.com, number 2. Number 3.
I have,
you got idea? You got.
No, I was just gonna say I haven't used Monday specifically. I know a lot of people use Monday. Obviously, Zach, you being one of them, and I've heard generally good things. Project management is not something that I excel at. Fortunately, my wonderful wife has handled that problem for me, and she's. Is free the right word to use? Probably not.
Can I, well, Caleb, when we posted on Instagram yesterday asking people, hey, what are the free resources you use in your creative job? I think Megan posted your name. So, yeah, well, she said Caleb Weidman. So,
sure.
So then, yeah. Oh, well, I mean, I guess it's a classification.
But if you don't have a Megan Weidman to help you stay organized, something like Monday completely for free to handle that kind of stuff, it makes a lot of sense. For sure.
It's worth saying that, like, organizationally as Blackbar, we use Basecamp, and I know at both Lifehouse and Crossing Crown we've used Basecamp, but that is a lot more of a financial investment, and it's a lot more built for organization structure. So a tool we recommend, but this is the free episode. So if you need that starting point just for you, Monday's a great starting point. So
it's a great starting point.
Yeah,
guys, I got another one for y'all.
Hit it, Nick. Number 3.
Number 3 is DaVinci Resolve. Now, I know we've talked about this before, right? There was a podcast, I think one of our first ones in this particular season, where we actually took a look at some of the new updates in DaVinci Resolve. Yeah. What I can tell you, as someone who edits mainly in Premiere Pro, when it comes to what can DaVinci do versus what can Premiere do, they're very, very close. And in some ways, the paid version of DaVinci, I think, is going to surpass, if it hasn't already surpassed, Premiere Pro, which is the standard Adobe software for video editing. I mean, you got all the things that Premiere has, where you can do the create captions on a video. It has some auto tracking for repurposing and reframing. Some of the things that I love about it as well would be the relight tool, which is pretty incredible. The thing, the big difference here being it's free. You can download the software for free. There is the paid version, but the other part is if you are already invested in the Blackmagic space, so like using any of their cameras and stuff, anytime you purchase one of their cameras, this software, which is about, I think, somewhere between $200 and $400 value, is given to you for free. And that's a free for life. So like, we purchased, and I've purchased a Blackmagic camera, and so with that camera came the ability to download, I think it was at the time DaVinci 17, and we're now at like, I don't know, 18.6 or something like that. I think you literally just had it up there, Caleb, but like, so we've had many incremental increases in this program, and because we bought Blackmagic, we continue to have this $200 to $400 value software for free for life.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that this is probably one of the, if not top 3 most powerful free softwares on our list today. Like, if you want to get into video editing, there is no reason not to learn this. I'm a Final Cut fanboy, and I'm always salty about this, but like, I think that Premiere and DaVinci Resolve are probably in the top 2 spots right now for video editing softwares that are accessible to just the everyday person. So,
if you're a church that certainly that wants to get into video, and you're that average church that's like 100 people or less, like you don't need. Premiere is going to be at least $15 a month if you just want their like their video suite or whatever. That adds up over the years. Absolutely, it does. There's no reason why I wouldn't recommend DaVinci over the other options.
Yeah.
Another thing I really love about DaVinci is that it's also compatible for like mobile devices, specifically like iPad, which I use frequently, which has been really great for me because I can just take this anywhere and edit a really professional nonlinear editor on my iPad. The difference between that and what Adobe offers would be Premiere Rush, which is free to a point. but certainly lacks some of the features I'd say DaVinci has. So
Sure.
DaVinci, great program that's free. And if you want to unlock some of those other features, you can always pay for it.
Yeah, and I will say that even if you decide to pay for it, it's a one-time cost. Like the Adobe Suite is amazing, but the monthly cost is really the only function you're going to get out of it. So like I believe the DaVinci and Final Cut probably cost around the same, which is around $400 give or take. I don't know if that's the exact pricing as of this moment in time in 2024, but I mean, like,
Caleb's looking it up.
Comparable pricing programs, and if you decide that your Church of 100 can pay for the extra suite, then I mean, it's worth the investment. More than worth the investment.
$295.
Wow, man.
Nice.
I do
that's DaVinci.
That's DaVinci.
Yeah,
that is the same. That is the same as Final Cut. Yep, they're both the same cost. But
I have to say, so we had an episode a few months ago on After Effects. I remember we were the planned episode was going to be like, oh, I'm going to show you these 5 plugins I really love for After Effects, and then we flipped like the day before because I found Project Avalanche. I was like, oh, forget this. My saltiness towards After Effects started to grow more and more and more, which has honestly started to spread outside to the rest of the Adobe suite, and realize they have such a chokehold on the entire creative industry.
Well,
and honestly, outside of some of the new AI tools, lack of innovation across the board, and they're charging me, $50-$60 or whatever it is a month to use all their tools. It has me looking many other places for alternative tools, some of which we're going to be talking today. But anytime where I could pay once and just own the program forever, perpetual license in 2024, that's a value deal for sure.
And one of the things I'll add with it real quick for you then, Caleb, is the idea that Fusion is essentially DaVinci's answer to After Effects, right? And that's where you unlock some of those tools with like the relighting tool and stuff like that in DaVinci Resolve. So if you can pay that $300 once for Premiere and After Effects, you're doing really good.
Yeah.
I'll have to see.
All right.
Caleb,
this isn't the episode to talk about that one. We should talk about that. But Caleb, you've got us on number 4. What is our next
number
item?
4?
Yeah.
It is somewhat known amongst this community that I might be a bit of a font snob. And if you've ever tried to get good fonts before, you know how expensive it can be to do it legally.
Gosh, yes.
Are you kidding? Yeah. Just go to DaFont.
There's a lot of fonts that are available for free, and most of them are really bad. And even the resource that I'm going to be sending to, I'm not guaranteeing that everything on here is excellent, but I am guaranteeing that a lot of stuff that is widely used across the industry is on here and completely for free. And that is the Google Font Library. If you're ever Googling for fonts, usually you're going to get stuff like DaFont, and you're going to get stuff like 1001 fonts if you're looking for free font stuff. Yeah. But the Google Font Library is sort of their like open source available library of fonts that either they self-make or they publish buy the publishing rights from creators, and they host on here for free. And you can use these for print. You can use these for web, which is usually ridiculously expensive to buy web rights for fonts. You could just use these anywhere you want, to the point of which web developers, generally speaking, literally only look at this font library if you're doing front end development. But there are fonts that are like excellent alternatives for really famous one. I know like Inter is a font that I go to because at first glance this just looks like Helvetica, and you don't really have to think about it. There's like I think it's called Cumb Sans, which is basically Futura. It's a geometric sans serif.
Nice.
There are all you have to do is like Google Helvetica alternative Google fonts, and they're going to give you a dozen different options. And there are, I believe, thousands of these fonts that are available in serif and sans serif and different languages. And you've got the funny fonts and the script fonts and all that kind of stuff. There are so many.
I saw Hebrew back there.
Great.
I was going to say, I think it's worth saying as well is that the difficulty with like DaFont and 101fonts.com is that I don't I don't know if this is something you've experienced, but you download a font that's like, okay, this is not bad.
Mhm.
But then you open it up and you realize that there are characters that are missing, or there are
Right.
things that don't respond.
Yeah.
Like I'm trying to do a comma and suddenly I have a block with an X in it. Like,
Mhm.
what the heck happened? I think
Right.
that
Sure.
generally speaking, the Google fonts, you're going to have a higher per
Mhm.
capita rate where you have a full font package. And not just that, but you have multiple weights to the family. Because most of the time,
Yes.
in my experience on the font, you're getting one weight and that's it.
Oh yeah.
And the fact that you have diversity on the font that's free, like from Google, like that's pretty big.
Yeah, I've seen some that there are some there's fancy new technology happening in the font space right now. A variable weight
Mhm.
fonts are a big.
Didn't
thing
we
now,
talk
where
about
instead
this?
Of having, I don't know if we talked about variable weights. Maybe we did.
Yeah.
But instead of having like light and medium and bold and black and extra black or whatever, there's literally just a slider and it like slowly, smoothly. There's also fonts with color built in now. And it has a handful of those. I can, these are not all of them are fantastic, but
Sure. Oh man, I love that
thing
one.
that was an option before. They have a font that's just all the emojis, right? That's
Nice.
usually a pain in the butt to be able to pull off. So
Caleb, one question that I see, maybe it's important to clarify: do you have to have access to internet to use these, or does it download to your computer?
That's a great
you
question.
can just download.
Okay.
There you go.
So as long as you have internet, you can grab the font. You don't have to have consistent internet connection to use that Google font.
Correct.
I mean, again, that's a pretty big deal.
yeah. It's crazy that that's just available for everybody. It's an excellent resource. To my understanding, was originally built to make like web development, web design specifically, really easy, because getting access to freely accessible online hosted fonts was not always easy. Google made that easy, so now we all get to win. So it's great.
It's great when everyone wins.
So number 5, we're back to me. I'm going to continue to stick on the project management suggestions and recommendations. First of all, how many people here have a Google account? Raise your hands. Do you have a Gmail?
I think I have like 2.
Yeah,
I have a couple.
I have like 7 or something like that. I mean, like a lot of people have access to Gmail, and of course, a lot of people have access to phones as well. And the beautiful thing about Google and the resources they've made available is many of them are free. Not all of them, but many of them. And keeping on the track of organizing yourself, Google Calendar is a massive tool. I mean, like it's very simple. It's free.
It is,
I'm not trying to like pull the wool over your eyes that like, oh, they're just talking about dumb stuff. Like if you spend the time to use your Google Calendar well, this can be a massively transformative tool that you have free access to. And not only is there a web version, but there's an app. And it also coordinates with other programs and email accounts, such as like Outlook and that kind of stuff, where you can schedule things in your calendar. You can let people know when you're available, when you're not. Like, again, with Cross and Crown right now, everyone, if you're going to schedule a meeting, rather than going to the person and asking, you look at their calendar and see, is this person available this week? And you find those windows. Like, leveraging a tool like Google Calendar is a massive opportunity to keep yourself organized. And I will say a sub hint is just the calendar on your iPhone or smartphone as well. Similarly functionality, like, and you don't even have to necessarily sign up for Google if you have some kind of weird opposition to Google, and you bought an iPhone, which I would have a larger conversation there why you would support one corporation, not the other. The calendar app on your phone, like if you just take the time, like my wife and I, we now schedule our lives on the calendar, because we used to be like, hey, do we have something going on tonight? And I was like, oh shoot, I don't remember. If you take 5 minutes to schedule what you need to, I mean, and you take that application and put it into your workflow, like, I mean, that's a game changer. You don't have to worry anymore. Like, what am I doing? You know?
Is there any specific functionality about the Google Calendar that you would recommend Google's Calendar over something like Outlook or iCal or something like that?
Yeah, I mean, I think I think Google is just really accessible. There's a lot of people that are using that kind of account. So there's already a unification across different platforms and across different organizations and folks. And I would say as well how it interacts with Google Drive. Again, you can have access to Google Drive for free. There are larger paid versions. I think it's just a whole suite of resources that just coincide together well if you are committed to the Google kind of network. And I mean, I think it's just a really clean, streamlined software. Like I like my calendar app on my phone, but I prefer to keep an eye on the Google Calendar because of the way the UI formats content for a workflow. I mean, I think it just really supports. I mean, it's a tool that is supposed to support and help you stay organized. And I think that the Google Calendar specifically, the way they've created it, it just really sets it up for a really streamless or a really streamlined process, in my opinion. There are other calendar apps out there, so don't hear that Google Calendar is the only way to do this. Like, there are other online tools that work very similarly to this. But I think just Google's free. Most of us have accounts already, so why not use it to help your stuff stay organized? So
sure. As a person who mainly uses PC right now and is certainly working within the Microsoft world, having Outlook as my mail manager as well, Google Calendar has been a great asset within that world as well. In fact, fun fact, the reason why we're a little late today is because my calendar had a desyncing issue, and I ended up missing a thing on my calendar, and well, here we are. I think it's 15 minutes later than we were intended to go live. Guys,
that's a good note. If you don't have access to internet, it's Google Calendar maybe isn't going to be the best. Or if you have syncing issues between devices, like it happens.
If you don't have access to internet, I don't know how you're here. But that is quite impressive. Please leave in the comments how you've managed to do that.
All right, well,
pirate Wi-Fi.
6. Circling back to Nick. 6. Nick,
yeah.
what's your next
well,
one?
It's literally the programs we're using right now. So I know I'm using OBS.
Stop that.
And we're also using another program, VDONinja. Both these programs are built for streaming, and they do so much more than that as well. But both of them are free. And again, with a lot of these things, there is an option to pay and kind of unlock some other features that are available. But you can see right now what we're looking at. Caleb, can you describe exactly what we're looking at? I know this is VDONinja's interface right here.
Right. So this is the VDONinja director side. VDONinja is effectively a video call software, kind of like Zoom or Discord has that, or whatever else. But it's built specifically for productions. So we're all in here as guests, and I, on the director side, have tons of controls on audio settings and video settings. And there's a whole much more that's like programmed into this URL. And we have all of these different sort of overlays that I can switch between based on, whatever it is that we're trying to do. Very powerful tool. And then OBS, I mean, we have built this channel on the functionality of OBS.
Oh, yeah.
It is just insane, everything you can do with it. I have yet to find an alternative that does everything OBS does for as free as it does. And because it is open source, it is constantly getting updates. People are constantly making plugins for it. So anything it can't do now, it probably can do tomorrow. So
and I would say that some of these two softwares are not necessarily complicated. There is a lot to learn and process through them. In some of our previous episodes, we have gone over this content. On one of our season 2 episodes, we discussed kind of the behind the scenes in the Blackbar in one of our early episodes. And then we also, most of our season 1 content that revolves around live streaming, very likely we are discussing some element of OBS in that process. So if you want to go deeper, you can go deeper into Blackbar content where we've discussed both of these platforms. OBS definitely more in depth because VDONinja is more recent for us, but two really, really great tools. And the fact that they're both free is it's something else.
Oh yeah,
the developer of VDONinja specifically, his name is Steve, and he has like a Discord where he takes like feedback and helps with problems and whatnot. He's the most responsive guy in the world. To my understanding, he has built this entire platform entirely by himself. I have sent multiple messages to him of like either help or like feature requests, and he's responding within like 3 minutes.
That's
and
crazy.
like we go
Right.
back and forth on like whatever the solution might be, and like dreaming up new stuff. He's awesome, and he doesn't know who I am. I'm not getting any like streamer
Sure,
privileges or
yeah.
anything like that.
We're
I'm
not
just a rando.
sponsored, right?
No.
Hey, Steve, if
but-
you're watching, we could be.
right, it is an incredible platform. What he's managed to build is completely for free. Everything, the functionality, some of the user interface is not super easy, but if you take the time to learn it, the sky's the limit on what you can do.
Yeah, I feel like OBS is pretty solidly hit a modern understand. Like a lot of people know about OBS. I'm really surprised that more people don't know about Video Ninja. Like
it is
Yeah.
big in the streamer world, like
Yeah.
the people who do streaming professionally. There's a lot of people switching over to that from Discord because of a lot of the extra functionality. But in the professional world, especially, and in the church world, I mean, it's basically non-existent. So hopefully we can help fix that a little bit. Considering it's free.
Yeah,
It's free.
I literally did a live stream I think a month ago now, where we had a bunch of resources that we used, but for the actual streaming portion of it was still OBS, and this was like a pro set that we were on. We're still using OBS for this broadcast.
Yeah.
So it's a great tool for the professional and the professionals trying to save money.
jeez.
Yes.
Okay, number 7. Caleb, what you got for us?
Number 7. So I'll have to be honest, I'm going to break the rule a little bit. This is not something that I use always. I know, but it's something that
Caleb, in
it's
the
big
vastness
enough.
of time, if you used it once in the last like 7 years,
Okay, sure, I suppose then. But I'm going to talk about a tool that is, well, two tools, which are Figma and Canva. So chances are you've heard of Canva. Canva is specifically a design tool for basically anybody to be able to put together most anything you would need, whether that be a flyer or a little post for social media or whatever. There's a lot of churches I know that are using this basically exclusively over like Photoshop or InDesign or anything like that.
Yeah.
If you do have access to Photoshop, InDesign, or anything like that, it's hard to justify needing to use Canva. And since I learned on those tools, I don't really have a good reason for the most part. However, as we've been talking more recently, both among Blackbar and with some of my clients about making templates that other people need to use, it is realistic that more people might end up using Canva in a year or two than people are using Photoshop, especially in the church world. So
I was going to say, I know for like Lifehouse, our core team, our core marketing creative team uses Photoshop, but the amount of other departments that feel like Canva is more approachable, and thus they're able to take care of some of the smaller things, like rather than bug us for like a I don't know, a t-shirt design or something like that, they can just take the logo that's already been created, pop it into Canva, give it the dimensions that it needs, and then send it out. Like it's a lot less scary than some of the more full Adobe programs.
Right. Now, the issue with Canva, generally speaking, is that this is a raster editing program. We've talked about vector versus raster before. Essentially, raster is anything that is made up of a bunch of pixels, right? So if you take an image that's 100 by 100 pixels and you stretch it to be 1,000 by 1,000, you're going to see really big pixels or really blurry pixels as it tried to sort of like expand itself. But something that is vector is like sharp lines, points. There's mathematical, no matter how much you scale it up or scale it down, it's always going to be perfectly clear. All fonts are vector, by example, which is why you can scale up a font to 1,000 point and it still looks clear. Canva, to my understanding, can't do any vector stuff, but Figma can. Now, Figma is a multi-purpose tool, and there are paid versions of it, just like there are paid versions of Canva. There are certain things that you cannot do in the free version of Figma. Collaborating with other people, I think you can only have so many open projects and stuff like that. However, Figma is excellent. I think it was built specifically for a web design, generally speaking, but has sort of opened up beyond that into be just a general like vector editing platform. If you are getting into front-end web design and you need somewhere to just lay out ideas and you don't want to bother with code, this is an excellent place to just start playing. And the fact that it's collaborative, multiple people you can see can be working on it at the same time, that is pretty incredible.
Yeah.
I mean, I've heard people just enjoying using this whiteboard feature where you can just hop in together and just, hey, let's just draft this up with the low effort, a low investment team collaboration.
Right. There are some automatic ways to take something you make in Figma and turn it into a website. To my understanding, they're relatively new and not entirely full featured. So, you know, do some research on that before you decide to jump, you know, all the way in on something like this. But if you're looking to do some basic web design, if you're looking to do basic logo design, which always must be vector, do not make raster logos. This is sort of an excellent starting point to get into that world without, you know, submitting to our Adobe overlords necessarily. It's worth taking a look.
All right. Well, number 8 then, just keeping us moving along. And this is one that you hear us talk about basically every single episode of the podcast. And that is, what is it, guys?
Discord.
I mean, I've been
like our Discord.
Like our Discord, like the Blackbar Discord. Discord, the power and the potential that Discord brings to the table with a free price tag is mind blowing. And the fact Discord isn't even a software where it's like you're not getting the best use out of Discord if you're not paying for the advanced version. No, that's not the case at all. I mean, I personally, in our entire time of Discord, have never had what's the paid version that
Nitro.
You guys have? Nitro. I have never used Discord Nitro, and I have never missed out because of it. Nitro is more so, it's almost like, I don't know, buying aesthetics for a game. It's like, it just enhances it. You can upload some more content, and as far as like file sizes and video sizes and word counts in your stuff, but like that doesn't really, in my opinion, take away from the true power of this, which is ultimately community and connection. And even in our episode with JP last time, we talked a lot about the value of digital connection in a space that is not controlled by a larger algorithm, in a place that is not controlled by corporations with agendas. Like Discord is a place that we have always voted for as like, learn about this hub for your communities. It can be church communities, digital communities. Of course, Discord has, and we've discussed this before, Discord has kind of a bit of a bent of like gamers gravitate toward it. But I think it slowly is growing in audiences because it can just be a one-stop shop for your digital community. Now, I've started to recently use Slack, and I think both of the guys have used Slack previously before. Slack is strong as well. I think Slack really narrows down a lot of the complexity of Discord that discourages people from it. Some people say Slack is kind of a more simplified and professional version of Discord. However, Slack, in order to unlock really any of the useful features, you have to do the paid version. Like, I think you can have Slack, but you can only talk to yourself, basically. And at that point, like, what's the point?
Oh.
Discord, or I apologize. I think it's 1-to-1. But like, why not just use text message or Facebook Messenger at that point, or Discord private message? Like, Discord just has so much massive potential, and the fact that it's free and accessible to anyone with internet connection, it's a no-brainer in my book. So I'm sure we could gush on Discord for a long time if we really wanted to.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So
I love Discord.
Yeah, absolutely.
I actually pay for Nitro, partly just because I do love the fact that it's free, and being able to support Discord in that way is something that I enjoy. But that's me, Nick.
For
Mayo.
Clarification, Nitro is not free. Discord's free, so he's just being a good person supporting.
Yes.
Right.
Aw, thanks, Zach. You said I'm a good person. I love that.
All right. So, Nick, on that note, just swinging back over to our good person. Number 9. What do we got, Nick?
We got Adobe Podcast Enhance. So this is one of the things from Adobe that is free, which is great. You do need at least some form of an account with Adobe. So that can be an account that's not attached to anything that you've purchased and stuff. You just have to have a registered account with Adobe. But all you need to do is upload any dialogue audio that you have, and the AI will process that dialogue and spit it back out, EQ'd and basically compressed and everything that you would normally do to your audio, but it does it for you. It also does a lot in terms of noise reduction and cleaning up any auxiliary sounds that are not just dialogue.
We can listen to a sample real quick.
I would love to listen to a sample. Let's do that.
Let me hit the button. All right. So
I'm in a conference room with the window open and it's pretty echoey in here too. Not the best place to record audio, yet with enhanced
So you
speech,
just turned it on.
all
That's
the
off.
background noise and echo is gone, as if I recorded this,
And this is
in a
on.
professional studio.
This came out
That's
in
pretty crazy.
It's amazing. This came out during COVID, and all these people started podcasts during COVID, right?
Yeah.
And so this was a great feature during that. I also use this frequently when I'm creating like social media content for our clients, stuff that needs to be done really, really fast, and I just need to get it out. A lot of times I'll apply this enhancer to the vocals, especially for like a talking head video, and then add in music and stuff underneath it, just because it gets very, very clean. Now, a thing that was a problem with this software initially is it was 0 to 100 essentially. It was either nothing or everything, and something they've updated, and they've actually brought this into Adobe Premiere Pro. Now it comes standard in Premiere Pro. You can now tell it a certain percentage of how much do you want it processed. So from 0% to 100% instead of 0 to 1. And it's a great feature. I use it all the time.
I mean, it's worth noting it's not perfect like any tool that you're using, especially when it comes to audio. You can't just slap on an EQ and then it's done. Like you got to do a little finessing, because there's a lot of audios that I've sent in. It's like anything in that 70 to 100% range, depending on how much background noise and volume there is. Like it's not perfect, but like the fact that it's this powerful of a tool, especially for someone like myself who does not specialize in audio whatsoever. Oh man, this is a game changer tool, especially for quick turnarounds.
Yeah, and I have found that like if you do usually boost it to 100%, you get a lot of what I'm going to call AI artifacts. That sounds almost like auto-tune and stuff. So it's really trying to find that middle ground where it works enough, where then you can go in later and add an EQ and add a secondary noise reduction or something like that to help get it to exactly where you want it.
For sure. And I think what's really cool, and of course Premiere's paid, but the Premiere integration, that's kind of a really sweet upgrade for this kind of tool. So
yeah. Come on, DaVinci, where's yours?
So just keeping us moving. Also, I wanted to update that I apparently miscounted. We are now on 12, item number 12. Some of our items are kind of like paired up together.
Sure.
So we're on item number 12. Caleb, what do you got for number 12 for us today?
Yeah, so I'll paint you a picture. Maybe you're into photography, or maybe you're into video production, and if you're in those worlds, you know that file storage is a really big thing. And especially if you're working collaboratively with other people and need to share those files, or if you're sending stuff off to clients. A lot of people use stuff like Dropbox.com or Box.com or any of these other
Drive is another
Google Drive for sure.
We share, those kind of things.
Most of them have sort of free versions where you get like 2 gigs, but I mean, like that's a joke if you're doing anything substantial. And those subscriptions certainly can add up. And even like with Dropbox, like for a long time we had the I think it was the 2 terabyte version, but that filled up, especially if you're doing like constant video stuff and sending stuff around. Like that's really difficult. So if you're also in those spaces, chances are you might have a bunch of old hard drives lying around from all the stuff that you've been working on, and B, hopefully maybe I know this is a big hypothetical, I'm throwing a lot of asterisks on this, but maybe a computer, not a strong one, maybe an old laptop you don't use anymore, an old like production thing. If you were to strip out the operating system and everything in there and reinstall it with Linux and whatnot, you could run your own self-hosted version of effectively Dropbox. And that's actually what we do as Blackbar. We use a program called Nexcloud, which is software that we run on we call it the Blackbar Arc, which is our server. It handles a lot of various things for us. But this is totally free. I believe it's open source. It is a way for us to upload files up to basically our own cloud that is hosted. It's hosted at my house, backed up offsite sort of thing. And we're able to send files back and forth to each other as well as to our clients. And one of my favorite things about it is when you use it, it doesn't say Nexcloud. It doesn't say, Dropbox.com or anything like that. This is the Blackbar site, right? And I can share these files. You can like preview of them. This is a jacket that I made for our client, right? I can send share links.
Caleb.
I know it's a dope jacket. You can hire me to design your apparel. We can talk about it. You can send share links. You can, delete things, copy things. There's all bunch of plugins that people have made because of that. So you can do automated stuff where like you upload a bunch of HEIC files and it automatically converts them to JPEGs, right? Or you can convert video automatically, or you can just a bunch of stuff. And because it's technically hard drives that we had to pay for at some point, and technically a computer that, or a server that in our case that we bought, Nexcloud is free. It is completely free. They even have like desktop syncing and whatever, similar to Dropbox already does. So it can look like you have all the files on your computer and just navigate and automatically syncs back and forth. I'm not going to say that it's without bugs. I'm not going to say that it's not going to be a bit of a pain in the butt to set up originally. You do need to be a little bit more tech minded. But if you're looking for a totally free way to have effectively unlimited storage, or as many hard drives as you want to plug in, Nexcloud is kind of hard to beat. It's pretty excellent. Oh,
Zach, I think you're muted.
You don't want to just watch me mouth words today? Is that what? Okay.
Generally.
Caleb, I was going to ask, of our list today, it sounds like I wasn't a part of setting this up. Do you think that this has kind of a steeper learning curve based upon our other items today to get that initial groundwork laid?
Sure. When I was setting it up, there was some extra difficulty based on some of my network setup at the time. You do need to, if you're going to be having this available like offline to other people, you got to now be talking about like opening up ports to the internet. If you want like custom URLs and stuff, you got to own that domain. You got to be able to forward that domain, something like Cloudflare, which is also free. This is more of an advanced setup. If you have, if you don't have any system admin background or like website or coding, like you might have to get into some terminals, then like just be aware that that's there. I'm not saying don't do it. I'm just saying the tutorials you are going to follow are probably going to have a lot of command prompt in them. So like, just be aware of that. But on the opposite side, you're saving theoretically like $20 a month on a ridiculous Dropbox subscription or whatever for the amount of storage that you have. So in our case, it ended up being worth it. And, we have on our drive about 20 terabytes of space, but we have bays. We have 16 bays that we're currently, or 14 bays that we're not using. So I think we can get up to like 100 or 120 terabytes or something like that.
Caleb, can you spell bays for us, please?
BAYS.
So not BAES?
No.
Like 16 bays?
No.
Okay.
We have hard drive bays that are empty that we can expand,
boy.
Something worth looking into if you have a lot of storage that you're trying to put together.
Oh my gosh. I'm so sorry to undercut that. I think this is a great tool. Nick, what's the next tool?
It's a great tool. I'm sorry. That was one of those laugh so hard I cried moments. One thing I will say about Nexcloud real quick, I think even like you think about the gear you need, I think you could probably run that off of a Raspberry Pi, couldn't you? Connected to some storage stuff? Yes, no?
I don't think I would do that. The processing power might be a little bit more than a Raspberry Pi, but honestly, even if you have a computer lying around that's 7 or 8 years old and you're not doing anything with it, it totally is capable of running Nextcloud.
Sure.
That's awesome. I'm glad that we have it for us. Another one that I use periodically is this thing called Splitter AI. It's also, you'll find it at vocalremover.org. I believe it is. But it does so much more than just vocal removing. And the reason I found it was because I had a music selection from a client, but it had vocals in it, and we needed just the music. And so we use this to remove the vocals from music it separates it into vocals, music, and even more so of like different instruments and stuff like that. Which is incredible. I know I asked some of the people in our Discord server this morning to help me out because, full disclosure, it's, again, one of those you can pay for more services kind of programs, and I am a patron of the person who developed this, and therefore I get a little bit more access to it. But yeah, you're able to access it. It seems like there might be a bit of a refresh of like you can use it once every 24 hours according to your IP address. But essentially, what I've found with this is even with like sermon snippet videos, one thing that I found, at least when I was working at Grand Rapids first, was a lot of times some of the really heavy hitting, powerful moments were also during the altar call. And so during the altar call, we would play music. And so now you have music from the altar call, and you're trying to cut up a clip, and you have basically like
around constantly.
Yep, and sometimes those notes don't match well, and so this was basically saved a bunch of clips for us to be able to use by being able to split these different audios into different tracks, and it's incredible. I don't think we'd be able to test it out here live, but I would encourage you guys, since it is free, go to the website yourself and give it a try.
Yeah, and it's worth noting that this is one of the tools that we can't officially tell you to. You should watch out whenever there's copyrighted content you're trying to strip things from.
Yeah, don't be dumb.
This tool can allow you to do
Zach.
things that are not legal. So please don't do things that are not legal if you don't own the content for it. So Nick, I'm guessing in your case, that person had the content that they sent to you to strip the music out of and repeat. In that instance, it was a very effective tool that does things that most things cannot do. The fact that you can pull music and vocals out, like there's a lot of people who have spent a lot of time on projects trying to do that because they lost the source files. So I think that's the best application. when it's a legal application that helps benefit, I think there's a lot of value to it. So
I remember being at Grand Rapids first. I forget exactly what project it was. It might have actually been the sermon snippets we were working on. But I believe there was a plugin for Waves that was like $1,000 or something like that. The plugin that was able to do it, right? Yeah. And so you have $1,000 plugin versus $0. That's
pretty.
It's a no-brainer. Yeah.
Well, Caleb, why don't you bring us through to number 14 on our list before we head into the 15th, which we thought was worth its own teaching session. What's number 14 on our first list for today?
Yeah, just about every church these days, for the most part, is going to need a website. And there are a lot of different services out there for people who don't know how to build websites to be able to build websites. Squarespace is a really big player, and they advertise everywhere. You've probably heard of them. Wix is another one. They've been around for a very long time. And these are what are called WYSIWYG editors, which is short for what you see is what you get, which is effectively they are front-end web development platforms that require you to know zero code to be able to build these sites. So you can just drop pictures and text and whatever you want on it.
And there's value there.
Totally. Absolutely.
I mean, at the end of the day, they're essentially just templates, right, Caleb?
Yeah. And I would highly suggest for most churches, if you can use something like that, because chances are you don't want to call your web developer every time you want a change to the site. You want your admin to be able to do it. So something like that, it makes a lot of sense for a lot of churches. However, they're not free. Squarespace's site, you can make an account for free and you can start building a site for free. But if you actually want to use it, you do have to pay for the service, right? Same thing for Wix and pretty much any other website builder around. But there is one website content management system that is, I believe, the oldest out of everything that we've talked about, and so popular that last time I heard, 70% of the entire internet is built using it. And that is WordPress. There are ways to pay for WordPress. Like if you want WordPress effectively to host the site, and I think you get a couple extra features and whatnot, you can pay them on a monthly basis to do, whatever it is that you have. But if you already have hosting, if you already have domain, and you're just looking for a free way to get stuff up there, WordPress has it. Now, WordPress isn't going to have built in the same functionality that a Squarespace might, or that Wix might, and be able to just drag things wherever you want and drop text in. There's going to be a lot of templates where you can like replace the text and replace the photos and change the colors and the fonts and all that kind of stuff. But it's not as quite like built in just free form, but it also is free. And there are more, because it is sort of like an open platform where people can develop resources for it and whatnot. People have built tools that go on top of it to be able to add that functionality. Most of those tools aren't free. The tool that we use most often is called Divi. Blackbar, if you didn't know, hi, we make sites and whatnot. I make them specifically. I do a lot of church websites these days. And we use WordPress exclusively because there is no monthly charge for that. And I use Divi, which is sort of like a third-party WYSIWYG editor for WordPress. That does cost money, but WordPress doesn't. And as I was sort of pricing out for a recent client, we were talking about these different platforms. They wanted to be able to edit it, themselves. But then when we started talking about, okay, now you're going to have to pay for hosting. Now you're going to have to pay for domain. And then, on top of that, you're going to have to pay for Squarespace or Wix or, WordPress if you're doing their special version. Yeah. Like that's just one extra thing that you don't have to pay for. Now, this being said, every single like backend web developer I've ever said, every time I've ever talked to has said the same thing every time I bring up WordPress, which is usually like cringing a little bit. There's something you should be aware. Like I said before, WordPress makes up about 70% of all of the websites that are available online, which is a crazy number. And because of that, the people that are interested in doing harm on the internet have a lot of incentive to be able to break WordPress and get access to data and do whatever you want to do. So I would say in general, if you're going to be doing WordPress, there's a couple things you got to keep in mind. WordPress does not, generally speaking, update automatically. You have to go in there and press the update button because sometimes it can break things and whatnot. So they let you do that yourself. Update that constantly. Regularly be updating your plugins, regularly be updating WordPress itself, because every single time there's an update, there are security patches getting fixed, and you do not want to be vulnerable to that kind of thing. To have backups, you can have backups that are automatically scheduled with free plugins that are available in WordPress. So either do that on a weekly basis or a daily basis, monthly basis, sort of depends on the storage that you have and how often you're changing things. And then the third thing is, if you can help it, try not to have sensitive information on there. Like if you don't need login information, you certainly don't need credit card information. Like if you don't need that kind of stuff, then don't do that. Or if you are going to be dealing with a lot of sensitive data, then at that point, the risk may outweigh sort of the money that you're saving on that front. And it might be worth to switch to a different platform. But for a basic church website that is effectively just like a brochure that you're having online, you're not dealing with any personal stuff. Nobody has a login stuff. You're doing giving sort of offline, which basically every church I've ever seen does. Yep. WordPress is a totally reasonable solution for that kind of thing. So I suggest it. That's what we build all of our sites on.
Yep. Well, cool. Those are the first 14 of our 15 today. It's worth saying before we transition into kind of the more breaking down of an item today that after this episode, we'll make sure to post this list of our free items on the Discord in our podcast channel. I know we got a couple people watching that have questions about some of the specifics of what we discussed today. We'll make sure those links are on the Discord today, probably within the hour of us landing the episode. So we'll make sure that those are available because we know we are running through a lot of information in one chunk. That being said, Caleb, we're going to throw it back to you because we want to talk about how to get started in 3D for free. And this is number 15 of the day of free software. So Caleb, why don't you take us away of what this mystery item is? Well, you already spoiled it earlier.
Right.
Whatever.
So before I talk about the mystery item, I think so. A few months ago, and we already referenced it in this podcast today, we had an episode where originally we were going to talk about a bunch of After Effects plugins. I saw a video that scared the snot out of me about a new tool that Unreal Epic was developing for motion graphics and sort of live creation stuff called Project Avalanche,
Yep.
which hopefully is coming out at NAB this year for public use. Fingers crossed, right?
And we did discuss that on a previous episode in season
Right.
2. So definitely be sure to check out our conversation about Project Avalanche for more details on that. So
Right. So that is not yet available, but it did scare me enough to where I started spending a bunch of time learning. Well, the plan was originally to learn Blender, which is sort of a general purpose, completely free tool for 3D modeling and animation and basically anything you would ever want to do in 3D. And then Unreal Engine, which is sort of the engine behind Project Avalanche that does sort of live 3D rendering and is used in tons and tons of video games these days. They're just moving into the motion graphics world. And since it's all sort of built on the same engine, I wanted to get good at it. And I started using both of them sort of simultaneously. And I realized that that's a lot. And it's not necessarily what I would recommend in the if you're trying to get into this for the very first time. And I have spent the past couple months, it's not been my primary thing, obviously, you know, I've been doing other things on my job and other hobbies and whatnot, but I've been trying to learn Blender and get better at it. And I've gotten better at it. And I certainly am not an expert at it, but I have been able to create things that I would consider pretty legit looking, that are like totally convincing, like high quality enough that I am, as a professional, as Blackbar, am now, you know, offering our, you know, services as someone who could do this kind of thing. And hopefully I can show you some of those things. But I wanted to show sort of as someone who may have never touched 3D modeling and animation modeling, whatever, before, what I would suggest as like the easy, quick, these are the steps I would take if you're interested in getting into this and you don't have any experience in the world of 3D or anything like that. Does that make sense? Is that?
I mean, I absolutely fit in that category. I have not touched the world of 3D, so this is going to be very much. I'm coming along with you, the listener, on this journey today, because I have no context for what to expect.
Right. So Blender, obviously we've mentioned its name a couple times right here. This is Blender. When you first boot up Blender, this is what it looks like. It is completely free. It is completely open source, which means people can see the back end of it and whatnot, and write plugins for it and whatnot, of which many of them have been made. Most of them are not free, but you can get a ton of functionality without spending too much money. I have a couple installed, but we're not really going to be talking about any of those today. We'll talk about a couple of them. But if you're going to be getting into 3D for the very first time, and you've never touched it before, the very first thing I suggest trying to learn is modeling. You don't need to be fantastic at modeling. Chances are, when we're thinking about how to get results quickly, you're going to be downloading models that exist and then possibly tweaking them or adding onto them and doing some simple geometry, you know.
So like, if I don't have the appropriate clothes, can I still model well? Like, I've never walked on a runway or anything.
Right. Modeling as in creating 3D shapes, right?
Hey, listen, Caleb, I don't know what you're talking about, so I just got to clarify that we're not discussing models on a runway. That's all.
You're right. I am not going to be able to do a full modeling tutorial in the space of time that we have to talk about today. Realistically, it's not going to happen. But for the sake of simplifying it down to at least knowing enough of the terms to be able to Google yourself to the answer that you're looking for. Yeah. Most every single model you've ever seen starts off as a primitive. And a primitive is any number, and you can see a list here of primitives that I have access to, like a cube or a sphere or any number of a monkey is actually one of the options.
Just like, is that like just default shape?
Yeah, these are default shapes that you kind of start from. Like cube has been, in my experience, 90% of what I've started with, and then I start editing it to turn it out to what I wanted too.
Yeah.
And once you start with a cube, then you're going to be adding extra points or extra lines or whatnot to be able to cut up and move geometry. So I can like do things like make an extra slice in here and then start extruding bits out. I can select edges and, you know, move them. And now all of a sudden we've got like almost like a little rubber ducky sort of shape that we're dealing with here,
that's
right?
where I was going with that too.
You know,
like a little duck.
I didn't have anything in mind. I just started making things and you know where we're going. But one of the words that is going to come up often when getting into modeling that you're going to have to be familiar with really quick is what is called topology. And topology is effectively the invisible lines and geometry and whatnot that make up the shape that it is that you're looking at, right? So when I look at this shape just right here, you know, if I ask Zach, like, how many sides does this shape have? You know, Zach, I imagine you'd count like, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. It has 11 sides to it, right? Right. But in the world of 3D, this shape is made up of actually a bunch more. These are all called faces, and they're broken up by edges. And those edges are all matched together by points. And generally speaking, in the world of computer graphics, polygons and faces right here, the more of these that you have in a model, the more processing power it takes your computer to be able to render it. And the more difficult it is for the computer to be able to do it smoothly and efficiently and without a bunch of errors and whatnot. So generally speaking, the vibe, the idea is to be able to make a model with as few polygons as possible, right? And that is a way to ensure that when you actually are time to hit render and actually make the thing that you want to make, it's not going to take hours and hours and hours and hours to render every single thing you do. There are tons and tons and tons and tons of tutorials online on getting good topology and the things that you have to keep in mind. The big sort of thing that I would recommend Googling, a phrase to be aware of, is what is called sub-D modeling. SUBD modeling. And this will be the last thing I talk about in modeling, but a subdivision surface modifier, which is what sub-D is short for, is a algorithm that essentially you can run on a model, and I'll do it right now, and it's going to do some really weird things, right? So it became this amorphous blob. All this geometry is still here, right? All that a sub-D surface modifier does is it takes the existing geometry and adds a bunch of extra, like, equally distributed points across your model, and then starts averaging those points out together. So you can sort of see, you know, that is kind of roughly... you can almost imagine if I added a bunch of extra points and then just applied a bunch of averages, you would get this sort of weird curvy version of our duck that's going on here. But if I add an extra line here and then start moving it around, you can see how I can influence where that average is, right?
Yeah.
And I could do that, and all of a sudden I'm starting to restore some of the original shape for a lot less geometry. And for whatever reason, you know, I'm not an expert at any of this kind of thing. The subdivision surface modifier is a lot cheaper for computers to be able to run and process than to actually have that geometry baked in, right? So the idea is to get good at using as minimal polygons as possible, while also convincing the subdivision surface modifier to give it what you want it to do. And that balance back and forth is 90% of it. That is, you're going to struggle with it. You're going to smash your computer into a wall. But it took a very long time for me to figure out the proper solution. Because usually, you know, if I was, before learning about subdivision surface modifiers and whatever, I would go in here and I'd want to make like a cylinder, right? And you can see, okay, every cylinder, every curved surface is made up of a bunch of individual planes. And I would just start turning up this number higher and higher and higher until it got smooth. Okay, now it looks about smooth, but now I have 214 vertices around the top of this thing. Like that is just a ridiculous amount of geometry. And if it's just one thing, I have a powerful computer, it's not that hard to process. But as I add more and more and more and more and more, it starts to get heavier and heavier and heavier, and then we have problems. So you're always fighting that efficiency battle with the detail. Things that are further away from the camera, you can cheat. Things that are closer, you can't cheat as much. So in general, step one, learn about modeling, and then learn about subdivision surface modeling. And there are dozens and dozens of excellent tutorials online about what these words mean and how to do it properly. So that is step one for getting into 3D. Do you have any big questions? Of course you have questions, right? Any questions I can reasonably answer here, guys?
Not at the moment.
Okay. Step two.
I do have a quick question. Would a simple YouTube search or Google search help clarify a lot more of what you're talking about modeling and topology? Like,
for sure,
is YouTube a good resource for?
Oh yeah, YouTube is where I learned basically everything that I'm going to be talking about here. And specifically, searching sub D modeling is sort of the go-to way to practice this kind of stuff and figure it out. The other alternative thing is called hard surface modeling, but in the world of CG and computer graphics and the kind of stuff we do, as opposed to like engineering and that kind of 3D modeling, that's a totally other separate way to do it. I'm talking about how to do motion graphics effectively and that kind of thing. So sub D modeling is what you're going to want to look into. The next thing you have to figure out in the world of getting good motion graphics and whatnot is the world of materials. And I have to be honest, I am still learning material. I'm still learning all of this. I am very much not an expert in any of this thing. But if you are familiar in general with node editors in any other software, all materials in Blender are handled via nodes. And some of these get really complicated really fast. But as just like a very basic thing, if I flip over here, let me switch this to rendered mode, and I'll add a sunlight real quick so we can see what we're looking at here. But I can change the color of this thing and okay. And I can change the roughness. So it's either super shiny or not shiny or metallic or not metallic. And I can make it emissive, which means it's going to be able to glow and affect other objects around it and stuff. Like there are a lot of options in here. But generally speaking, if you're trying to get results fast, what I honestly recommend is that people upload materials online that you can use, like just freely available. A lot of them that you have to pay for, not all of which. There is a specific plugin that I found that is free to install called Blender Kit, that they have some paid resources and some that are free. I have the paid version, but there are plenty of stuff on here that are free. And it shows up as a little drop down right here, this little fill in the blank thing. And I can just type in here, let's say like wood. And these are just materials that I can just apply for free. And I just click on them and it just slaps it on, right? And all of a sudden I have a wood surface on this thing. And you can see how complicated some of these materials can start to get.
Yeah, those nodes populated real quick there.
Right.
Caleb, these are all just already created and you're just bringing them in to branch onto your...
Yeah, if you are just trying to get results fast, which is sort of what I was trying to do, and of course learn along the way. What I did was just started like finding all of these different textures and whatnot, and I slapped them on, and then I started digging through these nodes and be like, okay, how are these built? Like somebody spent the time to figure this out. What can I learn from how they built that? And started learning about base color maps and bump maps and normal maps. And I'm not going to get into all the details of that. But what I think the important thing to take from this, though, is if you want to get good materials, don't start by just trying to make stuff. go find stuff that people have already made and rip them apart. Try to reverse engineer them, find out why they work or find out why they don't work. And you're going to make a lot of ground, make up a lot of ground faster than you would if you were trying to sort of do it yourself. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Cool.
It's a good philosophy too, just like, going through and kind of deconstructing, for lack of a better word, what other people did to figure out how it was put together.
Right.
I'm curious to see that it's a node-based editor. We talked about DaVinci Resolve already, and that's one of the most common, I think, node-based editors in the general media world. So it's cool that there's a crossover there at least. And honestly, it looks like there's a lot of tools that are similar to other. Like if you're a content creator, you probably have seen a lot of simplified versions of these tools. This just adds an extra couple. A little bit of more complication to it is kind of what I'm sensing.
Yeah,
sure.
Some of the materials that I have popped open look like there's like 30 to 40 different nodes. Like it gets complicated. And most everything on the back end of Blender, materials are built with the node editors. What are called geometry nodes, which we're not going to talk about today, are on the node editor. A lot of stuff is in that space. So I would recommend this Blender Kit plugin as just a good place to see what other people are doing. Use that as a jumping board. Find something that's close to what you need, and then sort of jump off from there. The last thing, though, I want to talk about is when it comes to actually rendering, what are the things to sort of keep in mind? By default, Blender has 3, but effectively 2 that you have to worry about. Render engines that are built in. Eevee, which is the default, that is like the simplest, dumbest. It doesn't look very nice, but it can, show you what you need to. A lot of people do their work, build out a model in Eevee, and then when it's actually time to do the work, they switch into the real renderer, which is called Cycles. So I flip over into Cycles, and it doesn't look like much change, but you can see my computer is starting to slow down.
Oh yeah.
Even your vocals in video is slowing down.
Yeah, your vocals started going there for a second.
So one of the big reasons that it's doing that, and I'm not going to move anything until I change this, is you can change which device that processing is being done on. Right now, it's my CPU, but I could switch that to my graphics card, which is going to be much faster at rendering these type,
yes.
as you can see.
So Caleb, real quick, for the person that has absolutely no context before this conversation, what is rendering in a sentence or two? What is the value of this? At what point of the project do we get to this rendering in a software like this?
Yeah. So rendering is the process of taking effectively whatever it is that is on your screen and turning it into a file that other people can look at, whether that is an image, whether that is a video, if you're doing an animation, however whatever sort of the final output is, it is taking your digital or your 3D scene and then smashing it down into a picture or video. And sometimes that could be a really time-consuming process. There's renders that I've done already over the past 3 months that have taken 20 minutes for a single frame. But there are ways to fix that and to speed it up, and definitely we'll talk about some of those. But when it comes to getting good renders, other than switching it out to Cycles, 90% of it from here is figuring out good lighting. And if you've done any sort of real world lighting in the past, a lot of this sort of carries over. So if I pop in a sphere here, and I'll shade it smooth just so we can get a good idea. And instead of using a sunlight, I'm going to use an area light. And the area light, you can kind of think about it as if it's just, like an LED panel. This is effectively a square of light that is emanating stuff out. And I can take it here and I can rotate it and I can scale it up or scale it down. And let's see, if I was trying to light this with a 3-point lighting setup, right? I'd send this to the back, and let me take that light and I'll turn up the brightness of it. Maybe we'll make it a little cooler, right? And then I'll duplicate that out. And I'm just going to do this really quick. I'm going to move it over to the front. Oh, and rotate it around. And we'll make it warm. Oh, I'm on the wrong side. We'll make it warm, right? And already we're starting to get something that, I mean, there's no even material on here, but this is starting to look more and more realistic. If I were even to take a plane and I put it down here, you can see we're getting really nice, high quality shadows and already like that was great. Basically
that took you less than 5 minutes to get there. Yeah. And that was with
and it's free.
And it's free, right? So what really the main point I want to talk about of all this is like, this is not hard to get good, like quality results with not a lot of education, not a lot of work. I mean, this is over the course of a couple months worth of looking into this while doing my job, while doing all the other, this has not been my main thing. And I've been able to get results that I'm able to, I mean, realistically, I charge for, right? And had a lot of success with. Some of the things that I think are worth looking at, my dad actually, and my family owns a company that does plaques, awards, recognition, personalization, all that kind of stuff, and they have been pushing to get on Amazon recently, and they've been wanting to put their plaques up on Amazon. And we were thinking of like, okay, we can like build out a small studio and take pictures of all these plaques and whatever. And then I was holding one of the plaques. It's like, this is not that complicated of geometry, right? Like I could spend a couple minutes, well, you know, maybe an hour or two realistically at the skill set that I was at, and just figure out how to model it. And then I could do sort of whatever I wanted. And that's exactly what I did. And I spent some time getting like the profile of this right. And then I lit it properly. And the best thing about this is I'm then able to, once I have the model, I can do anything I want with it. Right. Jeez. I don't have to set up the whole studio over and over again. Right. I can just turn it around, put different text on it. You know, like it saved us so much time and so much money, so much Photoshop work, just being able to have this 3D model and move it around and light it however I want. And, you know, you have this final solution. So
Caleb, for an image like this, are you exporting as a transparent PNG and then you can just pull it into like a editing space and just layer them?
Yep, that is exactly what I did.
Crazy,
you know, and now we're talking about doing a video for promotion on Amazon and whatnot, and that would be the same thing. I'm just going to move this thing around in 3D space.
Oh yeah,
you know, and it'd be great even with using some Photoshop, like the text and the actual print on this stuff is Photoshop done, right? So I can really quickly swap out that text and make it whatever I want, right? There's a lot of solutions there. Another thing that I worked on, this is sort of one of the earlier, I apologize, I had all these tabs open and then I lost all of the tabs on accident. Nick and I actually both worked on different parts of a job for Karl Storz endoscopy, right? I believe
Karl Storz.
Karl Storz endoscopy. And my job was to create sort of an opening bumper with their logo and had like a certain aesthetic to it. And they wanted sort of like this beachfront vibe. And this is an extremely wide video because unfortunately it was
an extremely wide LED wall.
Right. But you can see, there we go. You can see a lot of this is very simple geometry, but with just some decent lighting. And some camera moves that is the same thing I would do in After Effects, or if I had a camera in real person and whatnot. I'm able to move this around and it looks professional. Obviously it has that sort of cell shaded vibe and whatnot, but like it was exactly what they were looking for, right? And got a lot of really good results out of it.
In the room, it looked amazing too. I had the opportunity to be there in person and it looked incredible. And we got a lot of really good compliments on it.
That's awesome.
Right. The last thing I wanted to be able to show, but I cannot talk about what the job is about quite yet, is I effectively was asked to create an Earth. Opening it up.
Caleb, while you're loading that, I have a quick question for you. So when it comes to Blender, you're creating stuff in the 3D space that can be used in photo, that can be used in animation, that can be used in like a variety of editing softwares, that can be the entirety of the video of itself, or it can be a supporting piece for a video in another editing software. Is that correct?
Right. And there are sort of workflows and whatnot to be able to incorporate 3D stuff into existing footage that you've shot, and then like you combine them in After Effects. Blender also has some compositing tools built in. I'm not familiar with them. I know that they exist and people have done cool stuff with them. But if I was doing it, I would be rendering that out in After Effects, or rendering it in Blender and then bringing it into After Effects. But here I'm unable to find the actual video, but you can see this earth that I've currently been coloring in After Effects and whatnot. I was able to make entirely in Blender, and that's, I mean,
dang,
in my
beautiful?
humble opinion, is pretty legit. And yeah, I follow tutorials. Yeah, most definitely. I didn't know how to make this when I first started this project. I didn't know how to make this when I accepted this job necessarily. But there are guides that exist out there that can walk you through it. It is not as complicated as you think to be able to jump into it. And the best part of it is that all of these things that I've shown today cost me $0 to make. Blender is completely free. None
Except
of
for
these
After
are
Effects.
using.
You're in After Effects
for
sure.
So. Right. Yeah. But the actual globe, the complicated part of this, is a totally free resource. Even the maps that I used are provided from NASA for free.
Wow.
For topology
Beautiful.
and all that kind of stuff. So
Awesome.
if you are interested in getting into the world of 3D and you've been worried about or intimidated by it, I promise you, if you look into those steps in that order, getting into modeling, subdivision, surface modeling, finding material libraries that are online, and then using those as like a jumping off point to be able to learn how those are built, and then figuring out good lighting and use the skills that you already have, hopefully, from being able to light stuff in person. All of it transfers over, and you're able to get some pretty legitimate stuff without that much work. It's pretty.
Caleb, with that Earth, for example, with without the learning process, because we all know a learning process is necessary. What would you say the time window has been for you creating that Earth to where we got it in that image that you showed us?
Maybe 3.5 hours.
Wow. And that's, recognizing that Caleb is someone who's very self-starter. He has the ability to learn and capacity to learn and has experience in animation. But ultimately, 3 hours for how long have you known this program?
I mean, 2 months.
It's it's intimidating. And Caleb talked about a lot of really potentially complicated and maybe a little bit overwhelming topics today. But I hope that you're hearing that for free, all that he needed was the time investment, willingness to look into softwares and programs and find that information out from people who have already done this. Like, that's the overall return on investment is pretty significant for a software like this.
It has opened up a lot of opportunity. It's really, it's funny. We talked about, I got to learn 3D. And then all of a sudden in January and February and March, the amount of jobs that have come in that have required 3D modeling and animation have been steady. And we didn't advertise that is something necessarily we've done. It's just sort of opened up. So, I mean, it is a need that is out there. And if you're working at a church and you're interested in like increasing the tool sets that you have access to, getting into the sky is the limit if you really can learn how to do 3D modeling animation. There's a lot of cool avenues there.
For sure. Well, everyone, I hope that you have enjoyed our offering. We have assembled this beautiful feast of free items on a platter for you today. I hope that you've enjoyed it. And then as we land today's episode, as I said, if you have any questions about any of these tools or resources, we're going to at least try to put them in the Discord. We also have some really great fan submitted, some community submitted free items that we didn't get to talk about. We're going to talk about that in a few minutes in the Blackout segment for today. But for now, I hope that you can take these free resources and go and continue to create to your wildest dreams. And get a free drink in the meantime to treat yourself while you're learning these new software programs. Thanks for listening today. I hope that you learned a lot from these free resources. So, Nick,
it's time for our it's time for
here.
Blackout, which means it's time for you guys to turn off your lights, and I'll tell you guys.
It is also worth noting we have been live for 90 minutes, so it may not be too long. Might not be able to do too long of a blackout today, but
no, I imagine maybe 10 minutes or so. But if you guys have questions, go ahead, post them in the comment section of the YouTube chat there. This is a time where it's going to be a little bit less produced. We're a little bit more casual here, but we want to take your questions, and we're going to answer some questions that have already been submitted to us. First of which...
also, thank you for people on Instagram and Discord who responded with these things. Oh, and the YouTube live comment section.
Yes. When we asked our question yesterday on Instagram, one program that actually was suggested by a friend of ours, Grant Newswanger, and I know it was a program that we had been discussing. Do we add this? Do we not? Because it's not something that we typically use, and a lot of these programs are ones that we use. But Grant suggested Audacity. Audacity being a free, basically audio editor in the same way that DaVinci would be a video editor. This is specifically for audio.
The audacity of Grant. Audacity.
Yeah, I have used Audacity before. To be honest, these days, if I'm going to doing stuff in the audio world, I'm the Logic guy. So I break out my MacBook and start working in there. But from what I've been able to play with Audacity and the frequency it comes up, it seems to be a very full-featured audio editing suite. I don't think you could do really like multi-track stuff unless I'm totally off the.
I think you can do multi-track.
Maybe you can. I don't know, but it is
the
a very
last
powerful tool, for sure.
Yeah, the last time I used Audacity, I was 17, and we had a filmmaking competition in my youth group. Now, as it goes without saying, my team won the Oscar Mayer Wiener Award is what we called
Nick
it.
goes, as it goes without saying, as I say it. It's worth noting that you said it.
Yeah.
The
Johnny
point of that
and
was
Violet both said it can multi-track. It's kind of a pain in the butt. So take that for what it is.
Yeah, the point of that was we did use multi-tracks in that production, but it's I don't use it for a reason these days. Is that all I'm going to say?
Maybe I'll just really quick verbally run through a lot of the thrown out ones by the communities at work, Nick.
Yeah, I think that would be great. Let's list the other ones that were thrown out to us.
Now, it's worth saying that I don't know what I'm about to read, so I don't want to automatically say it. This is the Blackout segments. That doesn't mean it automatically gets our stamp of approval, but these are community submitted. Michael Sanders says Cakewalk by Band Lab. I apologize. We have some OBSs. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Scary Man. Scary Man also says GIMP, Blender, Google Slides, Notes. Johnny Yepes. What up, Johnny? Notion Calendar, of course, Adobe Podcast, Voice.ai, free fonts from velventine.fr, and freefaces.gallery. I will take your word for that, buddy. Mockups, you can use Creatoom. Creatoom.com, and of course YouTube for anything that you can learn. Dang, we missed that in the podcast. Rachel/Cosmic said, of course, Discord, Millinote, OBS, Google Docs, Pinterest, YouTube for lessons, Blender, DaVinci Resolve. Live2D is a 45-day free trial, which is pretty sweet. GIMP, she tried, didn't like it. From that Captain Geach, we got VLC, Handbrake, and 4K video downloader. Big note, if you're downloading content that you don't own with one of those free downloaders, don't do that. I mean, we can't justify that. I mean, come on, guys. You don't own that copyrighted content. But if you do own it, then by all means, go for it, right? 4K video downloader. Discord, OBS. Thank you, Justin. Hop says OBS, Inkscape, GIMP, Resolve. David Tredge. It says Blender and all sorts of add-ons and programs, and then Highlander said OBS and DaVinci Resolve. So a little bit of crossover with our main list, which is pretty cool.
I was typing as fast as I reasonably can for anything that was not something that was that we already mentioned. It might be worth flying through these because just saying the names is, I don't think, not going to be helpful to anybody. But this is the first one that we did not have. This is Cakewalk. I have never heard of it. It looks to be like a free nonlinear editor for music.
Wow,
yeah.
I've never heard of that before.
It's got effects built in and everything.
Look at that.
Mac and PC, because I legitimately, it's a DAW. Yeah.
Okay.
Caleb, describe what a DAW is real quick for those who don't know.
It is a multi-track editor for music.
Digital audio.
Yeah,
I forget what W stands for, but
winning.
Yeah.
Winning.
Workspace.
I mean, is this literally just free? Is this just free?
Is this going to replace what we use, Caleb, right now? Or is this saying goodbye to
I'm saving
potato?
this. I'm going to look. No, I won't do that. I will be looking. That's extremely cool, though.
So that was the first one.
Yeah, GIMP is not one that I talked about. Definitely something we're aware of. It is another Photoshop alternative. It has been around for an extremely long time. It is very
I feel like I hear
sourced.
a lot of people who are anti-Adobe talk about the value of GIMP.
Yeah,
I never
it's
tried
free.
to use it, but it's
hard to beat. It can do, the way I think about GIMP is it can do everything that Photoshop, CC could do, which is like an old version of Photoshop back in the day. It doesn't have a lot of the new fancy AI features or anything like that. But if you're just trying to do some basic photo editing, everything for completely free, that's going to be hard to beat.
That's not bad.
I don't know what Notion is.
Is this a GPT replacement?
Pull it up real quick.
I have it right here. It looks to be sort of like almost like a Google Docs replacement. So it does Docs, wikis.
Yeah, it looks like AI, Docs, wikis, projects, calendar. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. So that might be a good value option. It looks like there's free version and there is sort of paid extensions for groups and whatnot. So that might be something worth
interesting. Notion calendar. Very
next
cool.
one on here was freefaces.gallery, which I have not heard of this, but these are some dope looking fonts.
I mean, that's a sweet website.
Are these free? Are these free?
Get this typeface. Get it. Wow. Now I feel like the UI is a little not the
homepage had me this.
The homepage,
second page,
the download is a little worrisome. But that being said, I mean, Caleb just saved it.
Caleb's happy.
Yeah.
Caleb, the other one was velvetYne.fr. I don't know if that's
I think
I don't know how similar that is.
That's this actually.
Okay.
It bounced us out to
like
this version of the website.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. Velveteen. This is just another free source for websites or for fonts.
So. What a crazy font.
Yeah, some of these are a little weird,
right?
but
yeah.
We're gonna look into that.
The next one for mockups was CREATOOM.
CREATOOM.
M. Premium free mockups. Free PSD mockups. That's interesting.
Oh yeah. Okay, so some of these are definitely paid, but it looks like they have free ones.
Nice.
Yeah, if you almost certainly there's going to be like Photoshop files or whatever.
Sure.
But you just drop in like whatever your flat finished images, and then it spits out this nice, like fancy looking official thing.
Nice.
This is an easy way to make totally mid design stuff.
Yeah.
Your clients would be super excited about it. Just saying that from experience.
Milanote is the next one, Caleb.
Oh yeah. So it's funny. I had never heard of Milanote, and then in the span of literally 1 week, 3 of my clients all sent me Milanote links to jump on board. I can't unfortunately show you my Milanote boards because none of them are mine and they're all projects ongoing. But it effectively has like think of it like an online whiteboard for project management and for collaboration. You all just sort of throw stuff all on one board, and you, similar to what Figma was, you can see other people's mice moving around and like adding text and whatnot. So I'm like doing an apparel line for a client, and we're throwing a bunch of inspiration on here and like the files that I'm working on, and dragging on links to materials and images that we want to reference and whatnot. It's literally like a digital version of like an in-studio whiteboard that everybody's sort of collaboratively working on. This is
fully free, or is there a paid version?
There are absolutely paid versions, but I think you can do 1 or 2 boards with other people for free. It's very cool. I don't know if I'd use it for like project management necessarily, because it seems a little messy.
This feels like an ideation tool almost.
It is
like,
very good.
Ideation meeting and lets everyone just put our stuff on the board. Even that live sketching thing, that's very, very cool.
Yes, I like that. For ideation, I've really fallen in love with it. It seems very cool.
Yeah.
The next one I have here is Live 2D. Software that animates your original drawings. This fun. It's extremely anime. I'm already looking at it right here.
I gotta say, guys, while we're talking about this, the comments have been coming through in our live chat here. Johnny said when we're talking about the fonts, he uses them for funky fonts. But more recently, Johnny said, "This makes me so self-conscious about my recommendations."
Don't feel so bad about my recommendations.
So this one feels this one feels a little bit more tailored to like online artists or digital artists to some extent. But hey, Caleb, what if we did an entire episode using this live 2D?
If we made
avatars. Do you know how expensive VTuber models are? From what I've read,
you can make it in Blender.
$1,000. Okay.
So make it in Blender.
So Caleb, the next are VLC and Handbrake. I feel like those are similar.
VLC, VLC is sort of a video player that you can install, I believe, on PC and Mac. Yep, and everything. And it can play literally like every codec known to man. It's kind of ridiculous how
codec being the way
flexible it is.
Like
right,
things are like packaged and processed.
It's encoded, right? Yeah. So MOVs, MP4. A lot of times you open like an MOV on a PC and it doesn't know what to do with it, right? VLC can just play everything. There's a lot of cool little functionality. And Handbrake is a open source video transcoder. So if you have a codec and you need it to be something else, this is the tool to do it. And you can scale things up and down and change the frame rate and the container and everything. This tool has existed for years, probably longer than a decade at this point. So definitely trusted on that front.
For sure.
And then Inkscape is another tool that was suggested. I believe this is another Illustrator alternative. So this is for vector graphics, like logos and fonts.
Yeah, look at all these vector alternatives.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Man.
Yeah, I've heard of this tool. I've not looked into it quite a bit, but I believe it's a bit newer and has been picking up steam recently as more and more anti-Adobe sentiments seem to be growing in the industry.
Yep. And then I know we got a couple in the comments. Someone said that Filmora is a video editor. I don't know how dynamic it is compared to something like an Adobe or something like a DaVinci Resolve, but I do feel like I've seen people use Filmora.
I don't know anything about it. I have no idea what it is.
Ryan Russell mentioned Cloud Convert has saved him a couple times. Transport web-based.
If someone's worried about us looking at your comments, get ready. We're coming for you live.
Cloud Convert is like, it's an online file converter. Oh, I'm going to open that up. But you can convert. Oh, good night. What on earth? Anything to anything, it looks like. So can I convert an AI file? And good night.
Wow. Okay.
Saving that.
Yeah, I gotta say, I love that how our episode, like,
We're
this
giving
has just
free-
been a
we're
great
giving-
episode.
yeah.
I'm just
awesome.
I'm just taking the resource.
We've handed out a bunch of great stuff, but like even the crowdsourced from our community has been like
This is secretly
giving us some
just
great stuff. This is
Caleb
amazing.
repurposing things. Or did we miss anything else? Free pick is
I
another
saw
one
free
for free
pick.
vector elements.
Yep,
Yeah.
I have used this
think
before for like icons and whatnot as well.
Yes,
It's
yes,
been
yes, yes.
handy.
I think that's
Also,
like the last one, right? Oh, you got something, Caleb?
yeah, I didn't think to bring it up, but flaticon.com is another place
Flat icon.
where if you need icons for world, it's just a bunch. And like usually the
These
raster
are just
version is
free?
the raster version is free. I think you have to pay for the vector version. But if you're just doing like little web design or, you could do person, and there's all these different ones, or I don't know, cursor. They're like just thousands and thousands.
So these are vector what?
So
the vector
you can
is paid.
download the raster one for free, and then the vector one you have to pay $8 a month. It looks like to get access to it. So
And these are just a bunch of icons.
these are just a bunch of icons. And then if you find a creator you like, you can go and see everything else that they've done, and so you can find stuff of similar style and whatnot if you're trying to stick to a theme, or if you're just looking for inspiration. I've even looked up like logo inspiration in here if you're trying to just get ideas for how to represent simple shapes in a cool way. So yeah, it's a great site.
Wow. Okay. I mean, I think those are all the community recommendations. As always, thank you guys, YouTube, Discord, social media. Thank you for contributing and participating. Our hope with these kind of episodes is that we just resource you to do the best dang job that you can. Guys, are there any other final things you wanted to say before we kind of land out today's Blackout segment?
Yeah, I know there's a couple other questions in chat that I know we're not going to have time to hit today, but specifically, Ryland Russell, I know there was a question you had there. If you're not in our Discord, join us in our Discord. The link is at the bottom of the screen there. Not the link, the URL is at the bottom of the screen there. It's our community where we hang out. We talk about all kinds of different stuff, specifically in the church creative world. And if you want to continue that conversation, join us there, and we can probably talk about it over in our Discord.
Absolutely. Well, Caleb, I know that you were the only one that really didn't talk about a free item, your favorite free thing today. And I think that by the end of this episode, we somehow resolved that. You just have so many of those websites.
I like free stuff.
Free,
What am I gonna say?
free is amazing. And as Nick said, you can check out our Discord, which is of course free. I hope that you enjoyed this episode. I will, like I said, probably within the hour, make sure that we post a list of all our free items to our podcast channel on the YouTube, so that you don't have to listen to every single section of this episode. I mean, you should share with friends if you think your friends would benefit from the content from this episode, but otherwise, I'll make sure that gets available to you. And then, like I said, I hope that what we discussed today only benefits you as you continue to grow and create and learn and advance your skills and reach people with new things. And then, of course, if you just don't have time, or if you have an excess of money that you just need people to help you do this stuff, reach out to us, blk.bar. Thank you guys for joining us today. I think we're probably good to land this podcast well. Thanks for sticking around. Thanks for coming, even though we were a little late. We are excited for all that's ahead. We'll see you guys in, I guess, 2 weeks. We'll keep you guys posted as we head into the Easter season. Excited for what it holds, and I hope that you're surviving. So maybe you can use these resources for Easter. I don't know. Caleb, Nick, and of course myself, Zach, are happy to help you and all that's ahead. So this has been 15 free things. Go and benefit from your free items today. And remember us when you think about where these free items came from.
See y'all later.
Bye, guys.